Hi, welcome to Healing the Trauma Within. In this session, I'm speaking with Kandiee Campbell about how to heal from loss of family members. Let me tell you a little bit about Kandiee. She is a transformational leader, energy reader, and certified happy for no reason trainer. She became a happy for no reason trainer because she wanted to learn skills that would enable her to live happy and fulfilled life no matter what life throws at you, including stumbling over your tongue. Kandiee desires people to live free and not feel insignificant. She works with women who have experienced a traumatic event that has left them feeling isolated, confused, or less than their true self. She helps them uncover hidden emotional triggers that keep them stuck in playing small and helps them create a plan for moving forward so that they can be set free from the self-defeating patterns that hold them back and learn to be the best version of themselves. Kandiee has an MA in clinical counseling and psychology from the University of the Rockies. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your time and allowing me to be with you.
I'm thrilled to have you here. This is a hard topic for me personally, just because of the loss of my husband is still pretty fresh. It's only been 2 years, but let's just dive on in. Grief is one of those things that you just cannot predict how somebody is going to handle.
No, each of us is different. Each of us handles grief differently. There's no set pattern. You can look at someone and they may be out doing things that you may not do when you're grieving, but that doesn't mean that they're not grieving. Sometimes they aren't grieving in the way that they should. Sometimes we grieve in a process of a bit of avoidance. But if you truly grieve, I understand this. You talked about losing your husband. In a short period of time in my life, I lost both my parents within 18 months of each other. I lost a 4-month-old and 2 dogs that I'd had since they were puppies. And they were 12 and 13 when they passed away. And my journey with grieving was to shelve it, if you can imagine. Not that I didn't want to grieve, but it brought up a lot of negative emotion in me. Growing up, I was always taught to not grieve or to kind of turn off that spigot. Big girls don't cry.
Right.
However, what I learned through the process of my journey is we all have to grieve differently. And sometimes we just have to sit and be and let that negative emotion come. Even if it just means, we may feel like we cry. I mean, when I finally did grieve the losses that I experienced, I felt like I just cried and cried and cried. It was the little slightest thing would make me tear up. And I'm like, I can't, I've got to get to a point where I stop. But eventually I did. But I had so much negative emotion stuck in me that I had failed to deal with or acknowledge that it was building up in me, which, as you know, in physics, what goes down must come up. So if you don't deal with it in a manner that gets it out of your system, it actually creates a backlog in you, and that creates a whole nother set of problems. But when there's no right pattern for grieving. You just have to, everybody is going to do it differently, and they have to check in and see where they are. If you tune into your intuition, you'll know whether you're actually beginning the process of grief or you're shelving it. And if you are, there's those 5 stages of grief that you go through. Everybody goes through them differently. However, some you might get hung up on. You might get hung up on anger. You might get hung up on denial, But once you process that, you can, you may go through the rest of them quickly until you get to acceptance.
Yeah. And something that I found with the stages of grief is that you don't necessarily go through them in the order that they say you should. And excuse me, and sometimes you can go from denial to acceptance, back to denial, over to anger, back over to, you just kind of bounce around them like a oh my goodness, what are the
Ping pong.
pinball?
Yo,
Pinball.
Yeah.
I kept thinking ping pong, and I'm like, no, it's the one with the bumpers. I was sitting here pushing my bumpers. Yeah, you feel like a little a pinball bouncing around this cage. Now, I know you mentioned, some people don't necessarily grieve in a healthy manner. I know when I lost my best friend in 2012, we had just started an animal rescue together a month before she died. And so I didn't grieve. I threw myself into this animal rescue. And I actually almost became an animal hoarder. I had so many animals because I wanted the ones that nobody else would take, that were hard to adopt. So I had all these amazing animals in my home, which destroyed my home. But it wasn't a healthy way for me to grieve her. Right. So, what is exactly healthy grieving?
Healthy grieving is, like you said, sometimes you go through the different stages and they're not all in a row. They're, you'll bounce back and forth for a while. A healthy stage of grieving is oftentimes letting that emotion, whatever it is, denial, anger, till you finally do get to the final stages of acceptance. If you're angry, let that emotion come up. Let it, you kind of have to look at square in the face, let it come to the surface and acknowledge. You don't have to be okay with it. You can be angry. It is okay to say, I am super angry. I just lost my best friend. I just lost my husband. I just lost my daughter, whatever it is, accept that. Let it just come over you, wash over you, be a part of you for however long it needs to come to the surface, acknowledge it, and then it's easier to release. It's hard because, as human beings, we don't like to acknowledge negative emotion. A lot of us are, been conditioned to just say, oh, we don't know that negative emotion. We don't want to admit that it's here. We're not supposed to be angry. We're not supposed to be sad, or disappointed. Whatever that emotion is, let it just come to the surface, meaning sometimes you just have to sit and you have to let it come. If it comes up and you're just like, I really am, this really makes me sad, or this really makes me angry, and it's voicing whatever is coming up. You don't have to like it. You just voice it. You let it come, you let it wash over you. And then once it does, you sit with it for however long it needs to be there. And then you can say, thank you. Thank you for whatever you wanted to show me. I let you go. And you kind of do this, I do a process of, I hold when I grieve, I'll cry, I'll hit a pillow. If I'm angry, I don't do it around people, but to release anger, sometimes I'll take a pillow and I'll just put my fist into the pillow and go, I'm really, really angry. This is really upsetting me for XYZ, whatever it is. You left me, you left early. And if you have to scream into the pillow, I don't recommend you do it with kids or animals around because they will respond to that. They will feel that. But if you're alone, you can cry and you can hit a pillow and you can go and just voice it. Because the sooner you get it out of your system, the quicker it can go away.
I can definitely attest to that because, like I said, with Cindy, I didn't grieve, and it took a long time for me to
Mhm.
get it out of my system. In fact, I still have things of hers that this picture that you see behind me is one of hers. Just things of hers that are around me that I haven't been able to let go of. But yet with Mark, when he died, I let the grieving process happen. I fully embraced it. And for him, part of that was I got rid of his stuff within like 2 days. I couldn't have it around. I completely changed our bedroom. I repainted it. I had to. It was part of my healing process. So, I think not grieving Cindy allowed me to grieve Mark better
Mhm.
because I knew what would happen if I didn't. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And you're allowed to, I mean, each person we grieve or each situation we grieve is going to be different. There's
Mm-hmm.
no set pattern that you're going to follow and go, oh, well, I didn't grieve this way, because as long as you are able to finally get to that release. I
Right.
have with, like I told you, my 4-month-old, it's been 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this past month that I was able to part with her clothes and with the bassinet that I had. Now her crib I got rid of quicker because I didn't want to move it. I was moving into a house, and I really didn't want to haul that. But the bassinet I couldn't let go of.
Yeah.
It was a collection. It collected stuffed animals I bought for her. The little things that she would have had. The clothes. A lot of her clothes were still on a hanger. They were brand new. She'd never had the opportunity to wear them. I had washed the socks and stuff. And there's some stuff I still have, personal things
Oh,
that were
sure.
made for her that I will keep and one day pass down to potential grandkids, if our kids have them.
Right.
And that's okay. But each person's got to get to that stage where they feel like they're at peace with where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
If you can, like I said, I finally just said, I need to find homes for these clothes. And a neighbor of mine is pregnant with her second child. She's having a girl. And so I was able to, I knew it was going to a good home. And I said, and she was thankful because she has a little girl, but she didn't have a lot of newborn stuff. And I was able to part with it and have peace with it. I was like, okay, it's been 6 years. I'm
Yeah.
coming up. This month is she passed away six years ago. Next week. But it's just it's a process, and you can't get hooked on the rigidity of, oh, well, I didn't do this stage. Maybe you did. We are all going to handle grief differently,
Mm-hmm.
process it differently, and go through different stages at different times. The
Mm-hmm.
point the understanding of when you get to the point of acceptance where you're able to finally let go is you have peace that they are gone. Their spirits may still always be with you, but their physical bodies aren't here. And no matter, if their name comes up or a memory comes up, it doesn't just instantly trigger out, oh my gosh, I
Right.
can't, I'm going to put my blinders on. I can't talk to you about this. I can't
Mm-hmm.
XYZ. When you can, someone can mention their name or talk about them and you're okay, you are steady and calm, then you've probably finalized your grieving process. But if
Mm-hmm.
you get to the point where, someone wants to bring up their subject or their name, and you want to go, no, can't do this. Not, I'm not ready for this. Then you're still in the grieving process, and you just have to keep going until you're at peace.
Mm-hmm. See, and I'm at peace with Mark. Um, I've moved forward with my life. I've found love again, but I still have moments of sadness. And that's, and I will, and that's okay. And when those come, I let them happen. It usually lasts a couple minutes and then they go away and I'm fine and I go on with the rest of my day. But what are some tips that we can tell our listeners who may be going through the grieving process, and maybe their support system doesn't get it
Mhm.
and isn't, that whole, well, it's been 2 weeks already, you should be over it. you know?
The one thing I will always tell people, and I tell my clients is, if someone's exerting opinion, well, if I were in your shoes, I would do XYZ. First of all, they're not in your shoes. And you can quell that by saying, thank you very much. I appreciate your input, but I got this. And you're not in my shoes. Okay. Because their opinion doesn't apply to you.
Right.
They're not walking in your shoes. When they walk in your shoes, then that's a different story, but they're not. But for people that, don't have the support system, I recommend journaling. I even recommend visualization, where you sit and you visualize them and you have a conversation with them, whoever it is, like in my counseling program, when I was doing my master's, we'd do like the empty chair, and the empty chair represents that individual. And you sit in a chair across from the empty chair and you talk to them and you have a conversation with them. It'll also speed up that grieving process, but you can say what you need to say, and you can journal everything that comes up. Not to say that you're not going to feel that. You're still going to always have that, something will make you think of them, and you'll feel the sense of sadness, or you'll feel like, oh, if they were only here. And that is normal. We're humans. We're not going to just be perfect,
Right.
But if you don't have the support you need, and you need to get through that process, you're going through that process, line up a chair in front of you and just talk to them. They're there. They may not be physically there, but they're there in spirit. And just tell them what you need to say. Or journal it. If you're uncomfortable doing that, then just there and journal. Talk to them about what you're feeling, what you're thinking, just as if you were having a conversation with them. It just gets it out of you, so you're able to release that energy and that negative emotion that wants to stay stuck in you.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I know talking to him helped me quite a bit. Especially when I was in the angry phase. I talked to him a lot and told him what I really thought. I got so mad I had a little shrine on my nightstand with his urn and some pictures of us, our wedding rings. I got so mad at him during that phase that I said, you know what? I can't even look at you right now. And I put him in the closet. I'm like, you're going to stay here until you learn how to behave. I mean, I was so mad. But it was just something that I had to get it out. So, that felt like a good release. I couldn't keep looking at his face, I can now, but, yeah, so you just got to do what you got to do to get through it.
Everybody's going to handle it differently. And honestly, everybody, but that's what we recommend, especially if there's unresolved stuff, maybe the person died and there was unresolved issues. Or, for a lot of people, like, they go to work and then that's the last, they had an argument, they have an argument before and something happens. And in that process, I really do recommend you sit with the empty chair and you talk, because you have that grief of, oh my gosh, our last conversation was an argument.
Right.
They walked out that door and I never got to say, I'm sorry. I never got to say what I was thinking, truly how I felt about them. So sit with them, sit that chair and just do it and align with it and go, I'm really, really sorry. I'm sorry about that we had this argument, or, we did XYZ. And do it until you feel that kind of like release. It doesn't mean you have to sit there for hours on end, but have a conversation and then come back another day, have another conversation. Journal what you're thinking, journal what you're feeling, what's coming up, because those emotions that are coming up are serving you for a purpose. They're coming up because they want to get your attention. And if we don't acknowledge them, they get louder. And if we keep ignoring them, they'll, our bodies will go, okay, I'm going to give you something you can't ignore. And it comes out in a way you don't want it. I mean, you can still move forward, but it takes you longer because you've got a bigger divide that you're trying to overcome. So listen to what your intuition is saying. Talk to your the loss of a loved one, whoever it is, journal about it. I even recommend, I don't know if you've heard of EFT, emotional freedom technique, just tapping.
Yeah, tapping. We've talked about it in a couple other sessions.
Tapping, you can sit there and just go, I'm really, really angry. You can tap on your collarbone. I'm really, really angry. You leaving me really made me angry. And you just you're not voicing it to keep that anger there. You're voicing because you're trying to get it up and out.
Yeah, let it go.
And you just tap until you get to, and you may go, I hate you for leaving me. I really hate you for leaving me. I don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to do this without you? Whatever is coming up, how dare you leave me? I mean, sometimes I even coach my clients. It's called the FU tap, meaning you bring up that emotion by saying, F you. But it draws that emotion up. And you tap until you finally go, you know what? You feel that release, whether you yawn or you feel that you can breathe. So oftentimes, sometimes when I'm trying to, I'll just tap and just voice. If you're around people and you can't voice it, that's okay. You can still just tap until you feel, because when it's going to lower your fight or flight, because when your fight or flight gets activated, that's not going to serve you well.
Right.
You're going to get either you're going to want to run from it, or you want to fight it, and you want to fight everything. And, it's a threat according to your amygdala, your brain, but it's not a threat. It's just all in your thoughts. It's what you're telling yourself about that situation. But tapping, sitting in a chair, talking to them, and you can sit in the chair and talk to them and tap at the same time.
Sure.
I'm really, really angry. You left me prematurely, and I didn't get a chance to tell you I'm sorry. The last thing we said to each other was mean things, and that happens. You have, we never know how long we're going to be here. So just cherish each moment that you have. And if you're grieving, just go through the grieving process. Don't worry about what other people are saying or thinking. They're not in your shoes. And they can't say, if I were in your shoes, this is what I do, because they don't know that.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me and with us about grieving and giving us some good information on how to go through that grieving process. And I just want to say to the listeners, if you're grieving and you need someone to talk to, definitely reach out to one of us. You've got our Facebook group, there's plenty of us who've been through it. But if you know somebody who's grieving and you've never been through that process, don't assume you know what they're going through. Be gentle with them and try and be as understanding with their mood swings as you can, because they can't control it. They really can't. And they just really need your love and support right now with what they're going through.
If someone's grieving and they're open to it, you can say, is it okay if I just hug you?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just, someone just needs to know that someone's there for them.
Exactly. Yeah, because we tend to feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we will talk to you in one of the other sessions.
Thank you.